How good is the God we adore, our faithful, unchangeable friend, whose love is as great as its power, and knows no compassion or end. 'Tis Jesus the first and the last, whose Spirit shall guide us safe home. We'll praise Him for all that is past, and trust Him for all that's to come. We'll praise Him for all that is past, and trust Him for all that's to come.
Now, this hymn is one I remember from my earliest days, and how good is the God we adore was a very popular hymn which we sang particularly on special occasions, and apparently it's been very popular and present really throughout the whole Brethren movement. So I turned to Nick Fleet, who has been on these videos before and is very knowledgeable about Brethren hymns, and I asked Nick to tell us a little bit about this hymn, how good is the God we adore, and maybe a little about Joseph Hart, who wrote it. So Nick, what do we know about this hymn and about the author and its background?
Okay, well, we don't know a great deal about the author Joseph Hart himself, although he did write an autobiographical piece. The details are a little bit sketchy, but it seems he was born in London in about 1712. He was born to Christian parents, and he says that he grew up hearing gospel truths and Christian doctrine, but it wasn't very deep-seated, and he sort of, as he grew up, he lived a life of pleasure-seeking and that sort of thing. But he seemed to have had an evangelical conversion experience when he was about 45.
That was evangelical revival, awakening time, wasn't it? To an extent.
Well, I think yes. I think he was familiar with the teachings of John Wesley, and he actually wrote a pamphlet against one of Wesley's sermons on Romans. So he intellectually knew his stuff, but he didn't really accept it individually. But apparently he was converted following a preaching by George Whitefield.
Okay, famous open air preacher, wasn't he? Yeah.
Exactly, and in about 1757.
Okay.
Thereafter, he seemed to devote himself to the Christian cause. He became an independent minister in one of the London chapels, sort of associated with the Calvinistic Methodists.
Okay.
And a couple of years after his conversion, he brought out one of his first collections of hymns. And it was called Hymns Composed on Various Subjects, and that was 1759. And it's in that little collection that this hymn first appears.
This hymn's very short, only 2 verses. Is that all Joseph Hart wrote?
No, well, actually, it's only 1 verse of his original hymn. The hymn appeared in his collection Hymns Composed on Various Subjects in 1759, and the first verse read, "No prophet nor dreamer of dreams," and that is a quote from Deuteronomy chapter 13. That's obviously what inspired this hymn, which he entitled Adoration. It seems that our version came to us via Martin Maidan's supplement to Psalms and Hymns of 1763. He was the first one to split the verse into 2 lines of 4.
Oh, right.
And also Toplady of Rock of Ages fame, he included the same 2 verses of 4 lines in his 1776 psalms and hymns.
Oh, so more than a few hymns are already fragments of longer poems now forgotten, aren't there? That happens quite a lot. Now, he died, I believe, in 1788 or so, and therefore long before the Brethren appeared. But is it true this hymn's been in the Brethren collection since the very beginning?
It was indeed. It was in the first collection that G.V. Wigram compiled, called Hymns for the Poor of the Flock. That was in 1838 at number 18. So it must have been one of the first hymns that he chose, and he's putting his collection together. And then in 1856, it was in the first edition of Hymns for the Little Flock at number 23. And it's been hymn 23 in every Brethren hymn book in the exclusive side, so the Little Flock, and Kelly's hymns selected and revised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating? It's been in there. Well, A, it's been there since the start, and B, it's always been number 23. And my feeling is it's been much loved by every generation since. I can remember it when I was a small child. It would be sung with great fervor. It was a very stirring hymn, especially as we said, on things like the end of the year, or if there was somebody departing or something like that. That was the hymn you would turn to express what people felt, and it was a very stirring hymn. Now, we always sang this to the same tune, which I think is called Celeste. What do we know about this tune?
Well, like many tunes, we don't know much about it, other than it first appeared in a hymn book in 1857. Now, all the hymn books will tell you that was called Lancashire Sunday School Songs. Actually, it was in another collection called Sacred Hymns and Harmonies, the title page of which describes it as the musical companion to Lancashire Sunday School Songs. So it was obviously associated with that Sunday school collection. It came out the same year, 1857, was compiled by the Reverend John Compston, who was a Baptist minister at that time in Bramley near Leeds. But he was from a Lancashire family who had quite a lot to do with the chapels, and they were obviously good hymnologists. They knew about tunes. So he must have compiled it from a local tradition. We can't find it any earlier than that, but that's when it first appeared. And it was evidently picked up and set to How Good Is the God We Adore. Funny enough, in his book, it was number 22, and he set it to the hymn We Sing of the Realms of the Blessed, which is another hymn by Mrs. Mills, I think, which appears in some Little Flock hymn books, Mr. Darby's edition in 1881, and in Mr. Kelly's 1894, and Mr. Hoggins' 1928. It's number 433. That was also set to Celeste, but as you say, the traditional tune to How Good Is the God We Adore. Yes,
well, I'm saying we never sang any other hymn to that tune, and we certainly didn't sing that hymn to anything other than Celeste. But it certainly makes me think how fortunate those Lancashire children were to have hymns like that given to them in their Sunday school.
How good is the God we adore, our faithful unchangeable friend, whose love is as great as its power, and knows neither measure nor end. 'Tis Jesus the first and the last, whose Spirit shall guide us safe home. We'll praise Him for all that is past, and trust Him